Okay, so today we're going to be looking at chapter 7 and 15 in the Phonics to Fluency book. So, in the book, in chapter 7, we have a quote from Ellen, who's a first grade teacher, and the quote is, "I use word families because I know they work." So, what we're going to explore is how word families and phonic patterns and the understanding of spelling stages can enhance our strategies, which is what Ellen is stating in this quote here. So Ellen's method of using these word families is, her approach. She's going to be using, and what we are going to be focusing on in this approach is the one or two word families per week, brainstorming words, the like an, and we're going to create, use a chart and start writing it out like man and tan and ran. And I wouldn't necessarily you just do it. I would get the students to start coming up with the words too. We're going to start adding longer words like Anthony and panda and stuff like that. Start adding longer words and multisyllabic words as we go through that. And when doing this, it's going to start helping the students decode and spell. So when we are looking at phonics in that traditional approach, phonics itself is is traditionally focusing on teaching and reading, or teaching and spelling, not reading, by emphasizing those sound symbol relationships. And that is the examples of like using that short A in bat, the long E in B, consonant blends like BL, or the digraphs like CK. When we come to Theodore Gleimer's research, he challenged the traditional rules on phonics generalizations and phonics instructions. He stated that many of the phonics rules do not consistently apply. The example that was given in the books was when the vowel goes walking, the first one does the talking, and it often fails. And this has significant implication on phonics instructions and how we approach it. So, while phonics shouldn't be entirely discarded, we do need to adapt our instruction and our approach. A more effective strategy is starting with the written symbols and then moving on to the sounds, focusing on those initial consonants and the consistency that comes with that. This is the onsets. Onsets, again, are consonants, consonant blends, and digraphs that precede the vowel in syllables. Some of the examples are B, bat, ball, barn. That's the B is the onset. D is the onset for dog and duck, and SP would be the onset for spot and spin. Those are what we're going to be starting to look at. That's it when we're doing that. We want to start talking with those initial consonant sounds. When we start engaging on teaching phonics and action phonics, this one is actually really pretty cool. The physical actions are going to be associated with sound. So like if we do B, we're going to do bend. C for, k, or S for C. We're going to start using this, or A. These activities are going to include those leader-led actions or group activities. This is also a good activity for our students that have a little bit more wiggles and need to get their wiggles out. So when they start doing this, that really helps them. When we to build up upon the concepts of the onsets, it's essential to move beyond the initial letters and start teaching the rhymes. And we're talking about RIMES, not RHYMES. And these are going to be our phonograms and our word families. So rhyme is going to be the vowel and consonant that follows in a syllable. And the benefits of teaching this is we're going to start having high consistency of rhymes in the English words, um, efficient word decoding, and yeah, efficient word decoding and higher consistency in the English words. So what they also put in the book was a week-long sequence. And we'll look a little bit further into some of these activities when I do my lessons. But just to give you a brief overview, we've got day one, which is introducing rhymes. We're going to brainstorm words of those rhymes. And we're only going to do like two rhymes. Brainstorm words that go with them. We're going to read, we're going to chant, we're going to do some poetry. Day two, we're going to write some more and then celebrate the students' poems. Day 3 and 4 are just a repeat of day 1 and 2. And then day 5, we're going to review and categorize words. So when we move on to going into the poetry aspect of this, it is really a vital role in phonics instruction. It's rhythmic. It has rhyming patterns that help and aid in learning. It provides for those authentic learning or authentic reading practices, and it promotes phonemic awareness and fluency. And the kids really start getting into it. And the more that you start practicing with poetry and integrating it in, it helps with that fluency aspect. All right, so we're going to move on to chapter 15, which was where we start getting into spelling development and instruction. And the book talked about a young boy. His name was Jason, age 7, and he wrote "Try It Again" as "Cheer It Again" in a story. And what this is showing is that children invent spellings, and they are reasoned and rule governed. So spelling is integral to writing instruction and word learning. So through writing, children are going to develop this understanding of the structures and functions of printed language. It's going to provide them opportunity to practice sound relationships and word patterns. Spelling development is a complete process that progresses through stages. And you need to know those stages. That's going to be on the next slide. When you have effective spelling instruction, it's going to recognize this and it's going to be integrated into that comprehensive writing program that you have. Teachers should view children's invented spellings as a tool to help inform that instruction. So when we start getting into the guided principles of instruction, there's 2 of them. And they are: spelling proficiency grows with the maturity and writing experience of the student, and spelling should be integrated into your writing program by providing them with ample time for writing opportunities. We're going to support their writing development. Okay, so children progress through various stages. So through writing and invented spelling, children are going to learn that print carries meaning and follows certain rules. They develop a concept that words are as units of the written language, and it's critical or crucial for literacy skills. Writing provides, again, like we said, that authentic sound letter relationships and word patterns. So, what I mentioned earlier, the stages of spelling development. So, what we have are students, they're going to progress through these stages. We had the pre-phonemic stage, which is where students are just going to put together strings of letters. There's no real sound representation in those. The next stage is the early phonemic stage, and it's gonna be very sparse in their use of letters to represent sounds. It is mostly going to be consonants. There is not going to be a whole lot of vowel usage at this point. Vowels at this point, the usage of them is the concept is they're not quite getting it at this particular moment in stage. When we hit phonetics, we're going to get more consistent use of the consonants to their sounds, and then vowels are still developing, but they're going to be integrated more and start using them more. And then we have the traditional, which is where they're going to start hyper-correcting themselves. They're overusing their visual memory to try to spell everything. And then we have the conventional stage, which is their standard spelling. They're starting to spell naturally and correctly. So to support our young writers, it is essential that we build their confidence and self-belief in their writing abilities, and we do this by giving them the necessary supplies in that time to write. And when they're writing, we're going to accept their invented spelling to help foster that phonological understanding in that, and it's going to just further enhance their spelling. So the classroom strategies that we're going to put in place are to support their spelling development is encouraging that phonemic awareness and sound letter connections. And then we also want them to start using classroom resources like word walls, personal dictionaries, using their peers, asking questions. So start using resources when they have the questions about their spelling. And then we are going to start implementing a more formal focus as children start to reach the transitional stage. So to conclude all of this, we've got effective phonics instruction involving the use of word families, consistent consonant sounds, and engaging methods like action phonics and poetry. And then we're also going to encourage their learning to spell and that it's understanding how words work and not just memorizing them. By recognizing these spelling developments and integrating them into a comprehensive writing program, it does support them becoming more proficient spellers. By implementing the strategies, we can enhance our phonics spelling and instruction to better meet the needs of our students. So now we're going to move on to the lessons that I came up with. So the first one we're going to be doing is exploring rhyming words, and all of these lessons are going to be for first grade. So what we're going to have our first grade students do is identify, practice, and apply rhyming words. And we're going to use the rhymes ACK and ICK. So that would be these words right here that I am changing to red. And what we've got, and these lessons, like I say, are going to be geared towards enhancing their reading fluency and understanding rhyming patterns. And then creativity through engaging activities. So what our objective is today is identifying rhyming words with the rhymes ack and ick, and practicing these words through the various interactive exercises, and then applying understanding by creating and solving rhyming riddles. So the materials that you are going to need, you need to make sure that you have these ready and available. Chart paper and markers for brainstorming. You're going to have a prepared list of words that contain ack and ick rhymes. You're going to have writing materials for your students, and then some hinky-pinky riddles prepared in advance. And if you don't know what those are, I will tell you once we come to that activity. And then you can, and I would highly suggest that you have materials for constructing a class word wall. So we are going to go through step by step for the procedures for today's lessons. So the first portion is going to be the introduction. That should take about 10 minutes. And to start, you're going to introduce the concept of rhymes to students. And what rhyming words sound alike at the end, and that they help us recognize a pattern in language. So you can write or display some prominent rhymes, and the ones that we're going to use today are going, like I said, the ack and the ick, like we've got here on the board as example of rhyming patterns. And that's where we're going. So the next portion after you do your introduction is the brainstorming aspect of that in their word list. That should take about 15 minutes to do. So you're going to engage your class into this brainstorming session to list words that contain ack and ick rhymes. So what you want to do is encourage the students to mostly give you one-syllable words, but if they come up with a multi-syllabic word examples, use those as well. Write down all of the words on chart paper as the students contribute them. As they start telling you them, start writing it down on that board. And this is what I put up here are just, I mean, there's a whole lot more, but I just put up a couple of them so you can kind of see of a word wall that you might want to create with the with their list, with making their list. The idea that behind this activity is it's going to promote one, active participation and active listening. It also reinforces the studying, their understanding of those rhyming patterns. All right, so the next portion that you're going to have is going to be reading and choral practice. So as you go through this, you're going to start reading through this list of words several times as a class. You're going to point to each word. So back, hack, rack, sack, black, slack. And as you're pointing to these words and saying them, they should be saying them with you. And you're going to do this for each of these, such as lick, tick, nick, sick, slick, trick. And again, they should be repeating. They should be saying them or repeating them right after you say them. And by pointing to each of these words as you read them, read them aloud, that's going to help these students connect that spoken word to its written form. Encourage, again, the students to read the words individually and in their small groups. So one of the things that you probably really want to do after you do a whole big group where they're all sitting together is you want to break them down into smaller groups, partners or groups of 3 or 4. And as a group, then that group reads each of these words that you've come up with. And then also have them take a few minutes to read the words out loud again to them individually, so that way it's not just the whole big group, but you've got them individually and even in small groups. And if they need help from their peers can also help them. So The other thing that you want to do, which is where that word wall comes back into play, is encourage them to practice these words throughout the day and the next day. And so after you get done with this activity, take that chart paper and put it up on the wall so that where everybody can easily see that. And by doing this, you're going to enhance their fluency. Have them chant the list of words chorally several times. Again, they can do it after they do their individual one. Bring them back, and everybody do it a couple more times. This rhythmic practice aids in that memorization and is going to reinforce fluency. When you're done with that, you want to discuss the possibilities of adding these words. Actually, don't even discuss. Just let them know that, again, you're going to put these up on the wall as part of your word wall. And that is going to be a visual aid for them to keep going for that ongoing reinforcement. All right, so a Hinky Pinky challenge. So the idea is you're going to introduce Hinky Pinky as a fun type of riddle where the answer is 2 short words that rhyme. So, for example, if you give them, what do you call a noisy duck's snack? Again, you've got that. And so what you'll do is you'll wait and do that. Now then, if you know the answer, you will know that the answer is a quack snack. And what you've done is the answer is going to be 2 short words that rhyme, such as quack and snack rhyme. So you're going to present Hinky Pinky riddles using words from this brainstormed list, and so that they can come up with that. So in this scenario, you want them using the the ACK or the ICK words, and allow them to work in pairs or small groups to come up with these riddles and solve the riddles. Actually, they can come up with them. I would have some prepared first. That you would have out there. I would have 4 or 5 at most to do that and let them see if they can, all solve it. And then if they get them solved, I would add to kind of enhance this is see if they can come up with their own Hinky Pinky. And by doing this, what we are doing is we're fostering that creativity and critical thinking skills. All right, so the Hinky Pinky challenge, don't do it for more than 20 minutes. And then when you're done with Hinky Pinky, you want to bring them back, and we're going to do the closure aspect of this. Take 5 minutes or so, and we're going to wrap up this lesson by reviewing what the students have learned about rhyming words with the rhymes ACK and ICK. Reinforce that you have the importance of practicing these words throughout the day and the next day, and the next day after that. As your word grows, reinforce to them, keep practicing these words. Just because we've added words doesn't mean you need to stop the words that you had before. And also, as you're doing this, encourage the parents. Send a note home to the parents. Whatever you use to talk to parents, encourage them to practice these words and riddles at home with them. So, if you have time, an extension activity that you might do with the kids is to start constructing that word wall with the rhyming words that you identified today, and then, like I said, keep adding on to it and reinforce that vocabulary and rhyming skill throughout the school year. All right, so our second lesson that we are going to do is going to be exploring rhymes through poetry. We are going to be using the same ACK and ICK words that we were talking about. That's where we're going to go within the poetry today. And I would suggest that if you're going to do poetry, introduce that in there, I would kind of keep them together, because then that way you're not mixing them up, and it just reinforces the same words that you've just been working on. Okay, so the objective today is students are going to be able to explore and practice reading poems featuring the ACK and ICK for this instance, whatever set of rhymes that you're working on is what you're going to, it should be reinforcing. They are going to be able to identify the words containing the targeted rhymes within the poems. And then students will be able to develop their reading fluency through repeated readings and choral reading of poems together. So your materials that you're going to need, again, it's going to be chart paper for poems that are featuring ACK and ICK. You should already have some poems prepared. You should be able to find that, or just make up a quick, 3 to 6 line or 4 to 6 line poem featuring those words. You're also going to have copies of those poems that you've already printed out on chart paper for each of the students, including making sure that they have a clean copy so that they can mark it later on in the lesson. There is also an optional activity that I'll go over, and you'll need fly swatters for this. It's called Word Whoppers activity. This is one that I'm going to tell you, you're going to have to use your best judgment and know your kids of whether or not they can handle having a fly swatter in that. So, and I will explain the use of the fly swatters when we get to it. Then we're also going to have sheets that are going to contain the words that the ACK and ICK words for practice. And then we're going to have writing materials for our students. So again, with the introduction, should be about 10 minutes or so. You're going to introduce the lesson by discussing that importance of exploring the rhymes through poetry. And let them know that you're going to be focusing on, and I didn't print them out or do that, but there's the poems that I was mentioning that are 3 to 4. If you can't find them, Ellen she had written out some poems too that doing that. So you can, if with your fluency, phonics to fluency book, they are in chapter 5. No, they're in chapter 7, and so they're written in there, and I can. You can put those, write those down for the students, and then, like I say, make worksheets that they had that. Or you can come up with your own. But we're highlighting the rhymes ACK and ICK. Then you going to move on to reading and chorale again, and do that for about 20 minutes. So you're next going to display the first poem that you have on chart paper. We'll read it slowly and clearly, pointing to each of the words as you read. And then we want to encourage the students to join in the reading as they feel comfortable. So you may have 1 or 2 that join immediately, and you may have some that never join because they're not comfortable with it. But this initial reading is going to help build that familiarity and confidence with those rhyming words. After several readings together, and hopefully by that point you have everybody has joined into you, you're going to divide the class up into the small groups. Each group will read a different part of the poem to get aloud. And again, that's promoting the active engagement with them and shared reading experiences. And once you have them read the portion of the poem or different poems that you've got, bring them all back together. And then we have a few of the students read the poem independently to the class that showcases their individual progress. From there, then we're going to move on to word whoppers. And unfortunately, I don't have a a fly swatter. But what you want to do is take a fly swatter, or even if you want to take maybe a piece of cardboard, or thicker piece of paper, and you want to cut out a hole in that that's going to be no longer than the words that you're going to have them put onto it. So this is, you're going to call out words from the poem, and then you're going to ask the student to identify and whack them with their swatters. This activity should engage the students to focus on the individual words so that they can find them and their rhymes without relying on the context clues. And that's the whole purpose of doing that. So if you've got the black cat went back to the sack, and you want them to find black, you want them to go immediately to that without using the context of cat and sack and things like that. This activity, let's say we did that. All right. So then we're going to move to identifying the words in those targeted rhymes. So if you're going to do the word swatters, you want to do that before you do this next activity, because it does help enhance the next activity. So you're going to provide each of the students with a clean copy of the poem. And then their task is going to be to identify and mark the words that contain the ACK and the ICK rhyme. And what this is doing is reinforcing their understanding of rhyming patterns and help solidify their recognition of the targeted rhymes. All right, and then from there, we're going to wrap this up. It should take about 5 minutes. And we're going to summarize with the students what they should have learned about rhymes and poetry today. Ask them about it. Get them to say, what did you learn? How do you know this? Those questions. Engage them. Make sure that they understand that's what's going on. And we're going to give them 2 more tasks to further their practice. We're going to just give them a sheet of words that are containing the ACK and ICK rhymes so that they can practice that spelling and reading at home, which is where I mentioned in the last lesson, where you want to let the parents know that they've got this, and to encourage them to practice this at home by having that sheet that you're giving to them. And then the other thing to do, which is going to kind of flow in a little bit with the next lesson that we're talking about, but it's not going to focus on that, but it is still with writing. We're going to encourage them to write their own short rhymes featuring the rhymes that we were talking about, either independently or with the help of somebody, maybe a family member or a classmate or an older sibling, something along that lines. So when you're closing up on this, you want to emphasize that significance of poetry for this. And it is extremely important in the language arts education. When we start integrating poetry into our lessons, we not only enhance reading skills, but we also foster that deeper appreciation for language and creativity among our students. And we're going to start nurturing their love for poetry in future lessons. All right, last lesson that strategy that I'm going to go into is going to be for exploring the invented spelling to enhance their students' word learning. So what we are doing is going to have for our goals today is understanding the spelling is a developmental progress. We're going to use inventive spelling to write short stories. And we're going to learn to segment words into sounds and represent these sounds with letters. So the materials that you're going to need today are, again, whiteboard and markers. Or you didn't need again, but It's the first time we needed whiteboards and markers. We do need chart paper, writing paper, pencils, crayons, markers, alphabet charts, and then a picture book for some examples of stories. All right. So your introduction, again, about 10 minutes. So to start, you're going to discuss spelling with students. Ask them if they've ever written words that don't look quite right to them. And then we're going to share Jason's story. And you're going to share that story with them from the materials of where Jason wrote "chit again" instead of "try it again." So he wrote this. Instead of "tried again." So this is illustrating how even when we don't spell words correctly, we're carefully thinking about the sounds, the sounds and the letters. So while it doesn't look like "try it again," if you think about it, it could be "chit again." You could hear "try it again" out of that. The focus for today is going to be inventing our own word spellings and writing stories. This invented spelling is going to allow us to use our best guesses on how words are spelled. Now, for us teachers, it's hard for us to try to come up with some of these invented spelling, but for your students, it's not. And you don't want to discourage them from ever trying to spell. So, the first activity we're going to do is the invented spelling practice. That's going to be 15 minutes. So, what we're going to do is going to do the demonstration by writing a simple sentence on the board using invented spelling, such as this one that I've already typed out and written out, which is "I want to the store and bought apples," which is what he's trying to say. I went to the store and bought apples. And as you can see, and what I mentioned in some of the pre-stages is that we don't have we've got some words that are missing vowels. They don't understand the silent E and stuff. So, but this is a close proximity to what a student probably would come up with for that statement. So what you want to do is ask the students to come up with a few words they want to spell. And then we'll write these words using the invented spelling on the chart paper. I would ask them on the word because I say as teachers, it's hard for us to try to come up to it. So if they say "I went," maybe they do come up to WNT, or play might be PLA. Those are the types of things. You want to write that up there. Write it exactly as how they are saying it. And then we're going to encourage the students to say the words after you've come up with this list, to say the words slowly and listen for the sounds. And then write the letters as they hear. So that's them coming up so they come up with play. They may only come up with P, L, and A, and that's what we're going to write. So we're going to do that several rounds, put that on the board. Your next activity, and that, like I said, that invented spelling practice, about 15 minutes or so. The next activity we're going to do is writing a short story. We want to give them about 25 minutes to do this. So now what we're going to have them do is brainstorm ideas for a short story. And it could be something as simple as when they went to the park, or their pet, or their mom, whatever piques their interest. Then you're going to read a book like this book. Let me show you this book. Where is it at? Oh, I guess I got to log into it. Sorry. Anyways, it was a just a short book that has a beginning, middle, and end. And you want to show them so that they can see the structure of that beginning, middle, and end in the picture book. Then what you want to do is have them send them off to independent writing. And what you want them to do is, after you've gone to the story, is you want them to write their own story that has that using their spelling, their invented spelling, and have them start writing that with that beginning, middle, and end. And while they're doing this, you're walking around providing the support, asking them prompting questions, encouraging them for their story. Then after you've done this, which I would give them probably 10 minutes or so. You don't want them writing a super long story. 10-15 minutes to do that. Then you're going to have them share stories. So after they've completed their stories, they're going to pair up and share their stories with the partner. And then when they're sharing their stories with the partner, they're going to focus on those sounds and words that they wrote and that they used. So once you're done with that, you're going to gather back up with the group, discuss how they felt when they were using the invented spelling. And you're going to ask them, did you find it easier to write your stories this way? And so what you're doing that, and asking them that, and then, you're probably going to get, it was a lot easier. And you're going to explain to them that spelling is going to get easier with practice and learning. And it is okay to make the mistakes. Having these attempts shows that our thinking and our learning process. And like I say, just keep encouraging them. You want to celebrate their writing. And what we're going to do after that is, with their short stories, we're going to celebrate it by displaying their stories in the classroom, emphasizing that everybody in the class, everyone, is a writer and their stories are valuable. So one of the extensions that was mentioned or that I came up with is creating a class book with all of these short stories, and then having the students also illustrate that. That's an extension that you can do. Or even having a story time session where the students read their stories aloud, and that starts promoting their confidence in sharing in their supportive environment. And then as a homework, what you might want to have the students do is see if you can get them to write a story at home. The homework is not as important, but again, you want to start involving parents as much as possible. So again, sharing that out in Class Dojo or whatever, asking the parents to see if they can get their students to write a story at home would be good also. And that's everything that I have for you today.